Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. I am Nicole BC, and you know everything. Welcome. Hey, friend. Welcome back. I love how this might be the most important one in this whole little series that I've been doing. That's kind of the prelude to the book, which I will start narrating on this podcast. Undecided if I should leave my camera on, although this moment is helping me realize probably not, because what's happening right now, it's very early in the morning. There's a massive construction site going on next door. And I'm just not going to go get a studio. This is my studio. And I have to now beat the construction guys, which hopefully we can do together. So the most important episode squeezed in between clients and work and clients, and it is early in the morning. Let's party. Because this one's all about being the boss. I think I started with Power 3.0, what the evolution of power is going to look like in this new paradigm, the future of business, 21st century leadership. But my friend, the whole point I am trying to make is we are taking everything we have learned, all of the wounding we have endured, and bringing it into this new paradigm. So in order to step up, we actually have to step aside. What is deeply humbling, where I find myself on the daily being knocked on my ass, is realizing like I might have quit the job, started the business, become a baddie boss, a bad bee, what were they calling it? A boss bee, boss bitch. I never had the placard that said it. I think I've always exuded big bitch energy. and then the influencers, who was that chick that this company went bankrupt, wrote the book, Boss Bitch. I actually don't think that's what it was called. Anywho, we're off to a really good start, BC. Focus. We have notes for a reason. So you quit the job. You started the business. You're the boss. And you brought that shitty, micromanaging, narky attitude with you. It's a different offense, same tyrant. Different logo, same messaging. Different calendar, but same like ball and chain belief that if something feels important, forward facing, inconvenient, bureaucratic, then like the sky is falling. And no matter what, you as the boss, the founder, the captain of industry, you are the martyr to be sacrificed for your weekend, your freedom, and the paycheck you don't even pay yourself enough for. That's for someone very special out there. You know who you are. That's what we're talking about today, because power is making sure you're recording. Power is not the same. We've redefined it. Power 3.0 is emergent. It's decentralized. It's adaptive, and it is contextual. That means you might not be the boss in every situation, not even your own business, because I pray to the gods you are hiring people who are better at things than you are. That's why they're working with you, not for you. Boss 3.0 is recognizing you work for them, not the other way around. So what we're going to talk about today is, how do you lead now? How do you become the boss you want to work for? How do we release this command, alt, control, copy, paste, right? That's the nonsense that inspired us to escape. Or the reason we got fucking fired is because of the old way of bossing. So the question then becomes, how do we trust? How do we inspire? How do we clarify? How do we create this level of leadership? And what I also get to witness every day with people who have been doing this for many years, I would like to say with my guidance, but they were called to this and they didn't know why. The call was coming from inside the house. And this is something I also struggle with on the daily. How do you find that get up and go, that force without the fear? And I don't mean force like push. I mean force like inertia, momentum, flow. Because when you release the stress, the struggle, when you recognize the chaos for what it is, fun, we fucking love it, right? We stop relying on the same dopamine hits. And it can feel very destabilizing. It can feel really boring. We're no longer the firefighter saving lives. We're now just a strategist kind of conducting an orchestra full of wildly talented, autonomous, creative, inspired beings that just need a small cue. They no longer need a hero. So, how do you know when you're leading from fear, especially when fear is wearing a three-piece suit and standing in front of the orchestra? I've talked about this a lot, I know. As you evolve, if you're listening to this, you're at a level already where your default tendencies, your quote unquote bad habits, don't look as nefarious as they used to. It rarely shows up like, I'm a chaos demon, like starting fires. It's more like the phone's ringing while you're working on an important project. This is serious. Boss 3.0 is the final boss level. And it's so different than anything that's come before. It's literally misleading. It is going to demand a level of trust and intuitive attunement that is masterful, because it is going to look messy. It's probably going to bring a degree of inefficiency that is frustrating. Can you bear witness to that and allow it? Because that is the job moving forward. Being proactive while being protective, having the highest standards, being wildly passionate, and also having realistic expectations. Someone has to be responsible here, but it is not your responsibility to own. And it will show up like, and you know who you are if you're listening to this, one narky letter from government, or I got served papers the other day. Not a panic, just small people doing small business. That's fine. We can play small too. So can you roll with the punches as Boss 3.0? My notes say, while the inner middle manager lights a cigarette and declares martial law. There is old boss shit and there is Boss 3.0. So today we're going to diagnose the old shit. We're going to drag it into the light. We're going to marvel at the shadow. And we're going to know that the brighter the light, the longer the shadow. Because you don't become Boss 3.0 by shining the spotlight. You become Boss 3.0 when the shadows don't scare you anymore. When you realize that they are part of the whole. You can't have a big old light, a big old sun, a big old power. I don't know if that played so well, without having some shadow, right? Without some darkness. So firstly, a lot of you listening are actually still in employment, and there's no judgment around that. I'm just familiar with you. Leaving your job is not the same thing as becoming your own boss. And this is the trap that nobody, I think, talks about enough. People think entrepreneurship equals freedom. And sometimes it does, for sure. But sometimes it's just the grass is greener, right? It is private sector self-possession with better branding. And it's actually just your trauma creating an entity. Like, it's just your nervous system setting up a Shopify account. And I say that lovingly. But one of the clearest truths, and in fact, when I wrote the book, Business 3.0, I realized it's not Business 3.0 at all. We're getting there. But what I had to help people clearly and distinctly see was Business 2.0, and why this weird in between that we're all in right now, 2.5, to be not eloquent at all about it, is so exhausting and demoralizing, is because we've got one foot in the old world, one foot in the new world, one foot on one side of the fucking chasm and one foot on the other. And we are being stretched to the nth degree. People do not just get out of the system. We've been traumatized by the system, and then they bring that wounding with them. And so under pressure, founders, CEOs, boss 2.0s revert to these inherited models because it's a default tendency. It's what we know. It's what we're familiar with. And they call this leadership. This overextension, overexertion, these unrealistic expectations are just a artisanal model of self-employment, of being your own boss. So sure, you leave the controlling boss and then you become the worst boss you've ever had. You drop the weird as fuck team dynamics and then just brutalize yourself and quiet quit through avoidance or disassociation or other habits. I watch people develop a really gnarly gym addiction because it's quote unquote healthy and an outlet for the wild stress that shows up when you ain't got that paycheck coming in. See the previous episode. So you start your own thing with all of this innocence and then become like a rabid trash panda trying to find like the one edible thing in the dumpster. So the same urgency, the same, again, martyrdom shows up because we don't know how to tolerate uncertainty yet. And we also start faking it. And we develop this weird ass habit of acting like we're not suffering. Or like the flip side of it is we start wearing our suffering like it's a badge of honor. Like I was the last one there and the first one up, and I'm working weekends. And you'll have heard me complain about how often I work all the time. It used to be a badge of honor. Now I literally say it to hold myself accountable because I know it's not sustainable. And I also know in this game of self-employment, of being your own boss, there will be busy seasons and there will be slow seasons. And so I do my very best to recognize the busy and give it a finite amount of time. There's just a huge difference between leadership and Boss 3.0 and the conditioning that came with the old style of output and productivity. We are becoming increasingly aware that employment is no longer the security blanket we covered ourselves with. Most people aren't sticking in a job for 3 years, and not because it's a bad job or they can't succeed, but they are so burnt out and exhausted. It is not doable. Like it's actually impossible to just stick it out. The way corporate is running these days, and even the way a lot of small business and independent business is running these days, is unrealistic expectations. In order to keep up, in order to succeed, you will have to kill yourself at your job. And that's where a lot of people find themselves suddenly in self-employment. And especially if you find yourself as a creative or a contract worker, you're having to say yes to so much that you're just repeating the same thing over and over again. I have 6 years of podcasting to support you in how to do that. This episode is really designed to just simply paint the picture for what new leadership looks like. And there's ample BZ talking you through like every minutia of where you might find yourself challenged. So I encourage you to look at the discography, pull out some deep cuts. If you've got questions, let me know. hello@NicoleBZ.com. I would happily point you in the right direction and probably just answer, or maybe even make a whole episode for you. That might be after the book. Anyhow, so I think, like, where do we start? Like, how do we step up into like boss 3.0? The difference between reacting and responding. Most new bosses, most self-employed people are not leading. They are reacting. Boss 3.0 is responsive. Boss 3.0 has space to read the room and then know, who should they engage with? Is it time for a drink or a bathroom break? Is it speech time? When problems emerge, Boss 3.0 is excited because there's an opportunity. Old school leadership is reactive because they read a problem as judgment being cast on their ability to lead. So instead of responding to the actual category of problem, a client getting weird, a contractor missing a deadline, a system breaking, a compliance issue, numbers dipping, strange email comes in, instead of responding to that, old leadership starts a fire drill and everything becomes critical. Everything becomes a priority. And there's only one priority. Everything else is just a to-do list item. Checkbox, need to happen eventually. When fear is leading, everything becomes a priority. That's a very critical indicator. So not just this like needs to get done or this is important, but old leadership says, this is a judgment call. This says more about me than it does about anything else. And this says more about our business than it does about anything else. And it says, I am failing. Therefore, business is failing. If things are unstable, or if we don't know what happens next, we are a failure. And that just isn't the future of business. And quite frankly, that's just never how it's worked. If you're doing something new, of course it's going to be uncertain. If you've created a new product, a new service, a new price point, a new demographic, if you've a new location, like it's going to be different. Can you lead in that uncertainty? That's what Boss 3.0 revels and relishes. So often when chaos, fires, problems show up, it's a space where we can learn. Boss 3.0 gathers, circles the wagons for sure, but then asks, what do you think? Who feels qualified for this? What's a reasonable timeline? What would get in the way of that? Is anybody working on something that feels like it would take them away from this particular moment? Can we absorb that? Who wants to lead? That's Boss 3.0. This is where it gets even more nuanced. Because again, fear never shows up the way that it used to in our evolutionary process. Fear will not show up as cowardice for a founder, a boss, someone building in this new paradigm. We identify as problem solvers. We don't really even experience our challenges as problems like everybody else does, right? And that's why it's so slippery. Because we've used fear to identify, to cue us to step up, be responsible, be protective, earn it, justify it, win it. Fear has looked like our standards. But in Boss 3.0 land, reality says your standards might just be anxiety. Fear says, I need to act now. Reality says, you need to determine what is actually required. Fear says, but I care so deeply. I'm so passionate. Reality says, your care has no boundaries. Your passion is limitless. So everything feels like a trigger in this moment. It is activating your nervous system. Fear goes, but I'm being proactive. Reality says you're trying to outrun uncertainty by performing intensity. That is the tell. Fear confuses intensity with accuracy. And that's expensive. It's expensive monetarily speaking, but it's more importantly taxing. It costs you energy, focus. That limitless passion gets dedicated towards something that is truly an experiment and not a problem. And I get how visceral and alive that fear feels. And it will cost you everything. Are you willing to invest it all? Are you willing to bet it all on black? It is exciting, don't get me wrong. And it will create motion. It will get shit done. That's not what we're talking about here. Can you move at the speed of success, not at the sprint of fear? Because in fear, we can't think through things. We don't see the whole horizon. We see the pinpoint. And it's like AI slop. It's just creating trash. It's a lot. It's viewable. It will look like evidence, but it's not what Boss 3.0 is about. So what is Boss 3.0 about? It's not personal growth, my friend. It is not hedging your bets and diversifying your income. It is not rich dad, poor dad, okay? This is not a future of work issue. This is not the AI conversation. The World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report that just came out says the most important and rising skills include resilience, flexibility, agility, and leadership. This is influence and creative thinking, not panic, not emotional contagion, not let me ruin everybody's Sunday because I got a cranky email or a bad review. The future is asking for leadership that can hold ambiguity without infecting the room. It is asking for discernment, trust, adaptability, human to human connection, and reliance and leverage. And this matters because I think founders are still showing up dressed like Boss 2.0. They think they need to visibly activate this old style of power and leadership, and it's not working. Overworking, overthinking, overreacting, over-identifying with the problem feels like being responsible, and it's just old. It's boomer vibes, man. No offense to the boomers listening. Y'all are great. Like, I'm not even going to go there, but let me just say I appreciate our work ethic. The next era of leadership is not louder. It's cleaner. It's the ability to say, this is a legal issue. Let's get legal on this. This isn't an existential crisis. This is an admin issue, not a financial collapse. This is an uncomfortable conversation, not an ego death. This is a slow, methodical process, not the end of the experiment, not the proof that our hypothesis was false. This is one problem, not 7 just stacking on top of each other. So I'm looking at my notes. I think we're going to get to the part where we create the system for Boss 3.0. So first and foremost, recognize the systems we have lived under have been extractive. We absorbed them and we started managing ourselves in the same language. We built businesses that claimed to be our connection to freedom and then packed them with resentful employees who feel like they're being taken advantage of, first and foremost ourselves. And so that's why this matters, because this isn't about burnout. This is about obedience. You can own a company and still treat yourself like a piece of shit. So we have to recognize the guilt, the fear of disappointing people, the shame around feeling unsuccessful, that hunger that we have that feels insatiable, the perfectionism. you've heard me talk a lot about this because I've just been sitting with this unraveling concept of perfectionism. And I had identified it externally so much. It's the fucking 1080p high def camera. It's the client load. It's the income. But I realized, like, again, the call is coming from inside the house. I expect myself to show up perfectly. And I am wildly disappointed when I don't. And no one even knows that's happening. That's what I mean between, like, the difference between the old style and the new style. That scarcity, that need to look like ... The external, the old boss might be gone, but we're still clocking in and performing as such. This is happening when you're dramatizing the problem. If there is a story around it, if you are reading into it, if you're not looking at a data set of 30 plus points of information, it's a projection. It's fucking drama. It is chaos. And you, my friend, are the demon. So, boss 3.0. This is not cool boss. This is not the boss who says, like, I see you, with their hand on their heart. And it's not the founder who reads a Brene Brown quote at the beginning of every meeting. Boss 3.0 is stewardship. It's using power to create conditions in which people can do excellent work without damaging each other or themselves. Boss 3.0 is design. It is pacing. It is redefining expectations. It is co-creating ownership. It is understanding consequence and discussing in advance of the people who will be affected by said consequence, potentially consequences. It is defining and designing communication. It is a user manual for every single person that is affected and involved. It is defining and designing rest and pauses and breaks and preferred work style. And it is the focus on truth in context and situational truth. How do we tune into what feels fact, true, real now in this project? Boss 3.0 does not ask, how do I get them to care as much? Boss 3.0 asks, how do I make the work understandable, sustainable, and powerful enough that it can engage without intimidating? And that's a very different question. People perform at their best. They create excellent work when they feel informed, trusted, and like they have the space to do what they do best. So that is Boss 3.0. It's different. It hits different. And a lot of people are going to kind of flail at first. Boss 3.0 can hold that. People, you will find that when they show up for work, they expect to be told what to do. When I say identify expectations, that's what I'm talking about. And you'll notice this because some people will just be like, I feel untethered because there's no anchor holding me down. Awesome. What you going to do with that? Where you going to fly, my friend? So notice the triggers and just bring awareness to them. Just help people see them for what they are, that shadow, that long, dark cast by the bright light. It's going to feel messy for those uninitiated. Panic feels fast. Panic creates a mess we have to clean up right now. Reactivity creates this level of churn and busyness, right? Like these false emergencies are so gratifying. And like founders feel so important when they're constantly freaking out. Only I can do this. I'm doing it the best. They're not wrong. But like What if you're the worst? Can you build a business that doesn't even need you? Can your ego fucking handle that? So maybe start with a filter, right? Like, what do I do when I get scared? How do I show up? What category of problem is this? Legal, financial, operational, administrative, relational, reputational, annoying but routine? Those are my biggest problems. What evidence do I have? Do I know this to be 100% true, 100% of the time to be a fucking problem? If not, who am I without this thought? What action would I take? Thank you. Oh my gosh. The Work by Byron Katie. This isn't complicated. Business 3.0, Boss 3.0 delegates not to offload responsibility, but to give people the opportunity to do their best work because they are legal. They are the accountant or in accounts. A direct conversation would be better than 15 emails or Slack communications. Or maybe I just need a fucking nap, right? So, Boss 3.0, heal thy damn self. If you suspect fear isn't part of your management style, take off that fucking double-breasted blazer, my friend. Separate signal from symbolism. Not every problem deserves an official response or even acknowledgement. Clarify the issue before you embody it. Become the container, not the contagion. Your feelings are real. They're important. They matter 100%. They are not an instruction manual. You don't need to compartmentalize or disassociate from them. You do need to stop promoting them like they are company policy. A leader's nervous system is not an organizational chart. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Your nervous system is not your org chart. So take a deep breath, calm the fuck down, recognize the frustration, the annoyance, the disappointment, the heartbreak, the embarrassment, the shame. Put it on a piece of paper. It ain't going nowhere. I promise you, it's going to be there forever. But stop using your own suffering as proof of whatever the fuck you think that means to your devotion to your business. You don't need to make your entire Sunday bleed to prove you care. You don't need to ruin your body to prove your business matters. You don't need to be the most animated, loudest, pushy person in the room to qualify as the leader. That is old bullshit. The most powerful move, the Boss 3.0 move, is name the issue, delegate, schedule the next step, not the solution, just the next step, and go outside. Take a deep breath, drink some water, and stop acting like every inconvenience is some Shakespearean succession crisis, okay? My boss friend. Boss 3.0, heal thy damn self. This isn't just about being nicer. This isn't about chilling the fuck out. This isn't about hashtag laptop, beach, business, freedom. This is about authority, agency, autonomy. You don't need to panic to feel important. And you don't need to confuse suffering with seriousness. This is a threshold, and you are about to draw a line in the sand and fucking cross it. Because you are not free just because you became the boss. You are free when fear is no longer your management style. You are Boss 3.0 when you can hold standards without using terror as your filter. You can assess without collapsing. You can care without being the contagion. You can meet a problem without making it your autobiography, okay? You can trust. You can respond. You can co-create. You can contextualize the power in the room, as in give it to someone who knows what the fuck to do with it in that moment. That is partnership, not just with each other, but with reality. That is becoming the container. Trust is the force, the momentum, the inertia. It is knowing that everything that comes my way is here because it's going to give me something I can fucking use. And I can compost and I can rebuild and I can create something even better in every moment that's coming next. Okay, we're done. We're here. Build partnership with reality, my friends. Be the emotional container and use strength, use trust to reduce fear. Allow it to become your momentum. That is the work. Heal thy damn self. The future does not need any more founders confusing panic with passion, okay? It needs leaders who can tell the difference between danger and discomfort, urgency and importance, noise and signal, fear and truth. That is Business Boss 3.0. Thanks.